Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel again. This is Cloud Institution. So in this video, we're going to discuss about one of the interesting topics, that is Azure virtual machines. Okay, so now in this, as part of this video, what are we going to do is that we're going to see what is virtual machines, and we are going to create one of the virtual machines. Okay, so in the VNets and subnets, what we have created in the last session. Okay, so now if you can go back and see what is Azure virtual machine. Okay, so let's see what is Azure virtual machine. So first of all, if you can see, okay, Azure virtual machine is the infrastructure as a service. Okay, so which is the Azure software based computer that provides the on demand scalable computing resources. Okay, this is the compute service. So we can say that this is the most fundamental services in Azure. Okay, so each and every so whoever is having an Azure account, and they'll be at least creating one, at least so some of the VMs basically they to deploy their applications, right? So this is the very basics and a very important service. Okay, so the VM is a copy of shared resources in a data center that can be optimized and used as needed. Okay, so VM are created by so borrowing CPUs, memory and storage from the physical host computer or a remote server. So basically, if you can see what is this virtual machine, is that is kind of hypervisor concept. Okay, so wherein you will be sharing the resources and you'll be allocating the resources for your virtual machines from the bigger data centers, from the servers. Okay, so now let's go back to the demo. So now, as you can see here, now so in the last videos, if you followed, okay, so what we have done is that we have created a resource group. Okay, so this is the resource group. Okay, the resource group, and the resource group we have created one virtual network, which is a VNet. Okay, we created a VNet. Okay, and then we have created a subnet. Okay, so this is subnet 1 and this is the subnet 2. Okay, so this is the subnet 1 and subnet 2. Okay, the subnet 1 and subnet 2, right? So now, as you can see here, okay, so in the subnet 1 we have created a IP address range of CADR range of 10.0.0.0/25, but in the VNet, if you can see, the IP address range what you have given is that 10.0.0.0/24, right? So now here the subnet 2 will be having the range of 10.0.0.0 slash 128 slash 25 again. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a virtual machine inside this subnet 1. Okay, I'm going to see that. So now this VM is going to be getting the IP address from the IP address range from this particular CADR range. Now let's go back. Okay, this is a virtual machine pan, right? Like, let's go back here, and as you can see here, if you want to go back to the virtual machine, if you want to create some virtual machine, let's create a virtual machine. Go back here and search for a virtual machine, showing here. Okay, so before that, okay, so let's go back and see what is the resource group what you created. Okay, so in the last session we have created a resource group. We have two resource group. Okay, so resource group 1 and resource group and resource group 2. Okay, so now if you can go back here inside, so we have seen that, so I mean there is a cloud institution VNet is being created. Okay, so this is the VNet that we have created in the last week. So now the cloud institution VNet, if you can see, there are some kind of a subnets we have created. Okay, so there are two subnets we have created. Okay, now we are going to create some of the additional resources, which is the virtual machine, which lies inside this subnet. Okay, now let's go back here, let's create a virtual machine. Okay, as you can see here, the resource group which I'm going to choose is cloud institution RG, because the resource group what is lies over here is that cloud institution RG is what the resource group, right? Okay, so now virtual machine name is going to be cloud institution VM. Okay, so cloud institution VM1, right? So now I'm going to create choose a region. So what is region? Basically, region is nothing but so the collection of data centers. Okay, for example, if you can go back here and see, okay, so if you can see this one, okay, if this is the region, okay, so under this region we'll be having a multiple data centers, okay. So multiple data center is nothing but the collection of servers put together in the single, the single space, right? So this is the region, we say less region, and this is the data center, I mean, like, so data centers, the data center means, like, so it's the zones, right? We can call it as a zones, availability zones 1, okay, availability zones, okay, zone 2, and then zone 3. All right, so we have these three different availability zones. It's not just a zone, it's the availability zones, right? So now if you can go back here and see that, so we are having a, you're choosing availability zone, okay. So the region is going to be a US region, because we have provisioned this VNet under the US region, East US. Now I'm going to choose any one of the regions, the zone 1 or zone 2 or anything, okay. So the security type is going to be a trusted launch virtual machine, okay. So this is security type, so you can just use anything, you can use standard also, okay. So the image, so the image is going to be a Ubuntu server. I'm going to create a Ubuntu image, that is the image which I'm going to choose. So now the VM architecture is going to be like AM64 or x64 is the VM architecture that we are going to use, okay. The size is going to be so the BS1, because 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So now, okay, now I'm going to choose with a SSH port, okay. So the select inbound port will be like, the SSH port will be enabled by default, if you can enable it. But if you don't enable it, okay, so then you won't be able to connect to this virtual machine, okay. So let's go back to the disks. So what is disks? Disks is something like Azure disks, right? So disks is something like where you should be, you have to be attaching that hard disk, okay. So how much capacity of the storage you want for your virtual machine, okay. So now I'm choosing the default 30 GB, okay. So you can use the disk type, okay. So there is the premium, standard, standard SSD, all these things will be used, okay. So now I'm going to use that standard hard disk, okay. So which is going to be like so which is going to be low, I mean a low storage, I mean it doesn't cost much, right? So there is, if you can go for, you can also go for a SSD hard disk, and then it'll be a normal hard disk kind of thing, okay. So it's not SSD one, okay. So now I can choose it. What is telling, the selected VMs supported for the premium disks, okay. We recommend to use the SSD for the high IOPS, okay. So we don't need that one, okay. So you have to be knowing that what is the features you are going to choose for your virtual machines, okay. Now platform managed key, so you just leave it default, okay. So let's discuss all these things later. And the networking, if you go for networking, so now you can choose the virtual network. So as you can see here, so we have created virtual network, so which is the cloud institution VNet is what created here, cloud institution VNet, and then the subnet, okay. The subnet is going to be like subnet 1. So as I mentioned here, okay, the subnet is going to be like 10.0.0.0/25 is the subnet which is created. I'm going to create that my VM under this subnet, okay. Now let's go back, and so now I'm going to assign the public IP address of this VM, okay. So what is public IP address? So the public IP address is something, so if you're not sure about, so mainly about the computers, like, so the public IP address will be attached, so that you'll be able to, so you'll be having a public IP address, as well as you'll be having a private IP address, right? private IP address will be coming from the subnet. Okay, the private IP address will come from the subnet. Okay, but the public IP addresses will be come from the Azure globally. Okay, so Azure will be assigning the public IP address for you. Okay, that is global IP address. Okay, so that you should be able to connect to your virtual machines from anywhere. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to um, okay, so okay, basics and public inbound ports is going to be a 22 port is what I've been selecting. Okay, public IP addresses I've enabled. Okay, so if you don't want the public IP address, you can give none, right? Okay, so now let's go back here. Okay, so you can just leave all the options default. Okay, the load balancer option, I don't want any kind of load balancers. If you want to use any load balancer, you can just also attach your load balancers along with your so you can just attach this VM to your load balancer also. Okay, so the management, if you can go, and so there are a lot of options will be there, so auto shutdown and backup enable and all these things will be there. Okay, so leave all these things default. Now next, the monitoring, as you can see here, so there is no monitoring will be, so boot diagnostic. So but for now I'm not going to enable any kind of a, so the monitoring for my virtual machine, because if you enable any kind of monitoring, it may charge you. Okay, so make sure that so you're not enabling any monitoring services. So now next, go advanced. In advanced, what you can do is you can use a custom data. Okay, what is custom data means, you can, if you have any kind of if you want to install Apache or like any kind of a Tomcat or any kind of applications automatically to be available during the virtual machine is creation, so then you have to give that particular custom data. Okay, we are going to see this custom data in the later classes. Okay, so now next, go to tags. Okay, I don't want to add any kind of a tags. Okay, so now I'm going to do a review and create. Now as you can see here, my virtual machine is getting created. Okay, so now I'm going to do a create. Okay, so initializing deployment. So if you want to see the progress of the virtual machine, you can go here. I can see that submitting deployment. So this deployment is in progress. Okay, so now what you have done is that we have created the resource group, and then VNet, and then under subnet we have created a virtual machine, and then that virtual machine will be having the private IP and then the public IP. Okay, so now let's go back and see if the virtual machine is created or not. Okay, so let's go back to the virtual machines, and we can refresh it. You see, the virtual machine one is created. Now as you can see here, so this virtual machine having the IP address of 10.0.0.5, which means that, okay, so it is taking any one of the IP ranges from 10.0.0.0/25. Okay, so it's picking up that private IP address from this range, and it is also allocating the public IP address. Okay, the public IP address will be this one. Okay, so this is how you will be creating a virtual machine under this one. Okay, if you want to connect your machine, you should be able to connect from private IP address as well as public IP address, right? So using the password whatever we have created for this machine. Okay, so that's it from this session. Okay, so hope you understand that how to create a virtual machine. So in the next session we are going to see how to connect to this virtual machine in some different ways. Okay, so thank you so much guys for watching, and if you have any kind of any queries, please leave it in the below comment section, and see you in the next class.